Here we go again. This time I'm even going as far as filtering out my oil to make sure there's no kind of contaminants or anything, giving her the full cleanup. Alright, so here we are for round 4. No, this is round 3 of fork seals on the KX250F. And I think it's time for a confession. First off, I want to ask you guys, what is your biggest, oh no, I'm an idiot moment when it comes to wrenching on your bikes? Sometimes the biggest problem is the simplest mistake, right? Well, I am forced to admit on this fork seal job on my bike that I'm at fault. I totally botched it up. And because of, well, it's my fault. I can't say because of anything. So, these Tusk fork seals have an outer spring, and to make a long story short, I'm an idiot and I was putting the seals on backwards, and that's why they were leaking. Now, Rocky Mountain ATV was kind enough to send me a replacement set on warranty. So I owe Rocky Mountain ATV a huge thank you for making sure my needs were taken care of for my bike. And in lieu of that, we're gonna do this one more time. So I am taking extra measures this time, in which I have thoroughly deep cleaned everything in the forks and removed any possible contaminants anywhere inside and outside of the fork tubes. And we're doing this with fully fresh, clean oil, which that's not anything different. We did it with fresh, clean oil the first time, but all the parts are freshly cleaned. So there's a big thing, and I'm gonna put the fork seal in the right way this time. So enjoy another video of me doing this again. So once again, I don't have a seal bullet, so I use painter's tape, and I make sure I oil my seal before I slide it in to keep it from getting any sort of a hang up. And I use electrical tape as my seal driver. So the nice thing about these two products is that They're universal. There's no wrong size electrical tape or masking tape. One thing I'm gonna do here is, because this seal has that spring on the outside, is I'm gonna build up to roughly that thickness. Maybe thicker, because I want to get pressure to the outside of the seal. Which I don't know if I'm going to be able to. So generally, I just take the electrical tape and I wrap it around until it's about as wide as this fork seal is. And before anyone complains about the price of electrical tape, I get it at the dollar store, alright? Electrical tape is cheap. Take our outer tube. And we'll drive her in. And this is where it gets a little more tricky. So I'll actually take I think I need to remove some of my tape. That's the other thing with this seal going on the way it's supposed to. I think it's gonna fit a lot more tighter. Much more. If I can find the end of this tape, that'll be helpful. There we go. Make sure the tape fits inside there. There we go. Okay. Yeah. That worked much better. All right, perfect. Couple extras. Now we'll pull off the rest of the tape. That was the problem with getting the seal on there. I had the tape spread too thick. See, if I didn't have the exact fork seal driver, I would have been looking for an alternative solution already. Ultimate test will be when I fill this sucker full of oil. And I do a compression check. Shouldn't hear any air sneaking past that seal anymore. All right. sure we clean off any tape residue. I'll take a little bit of brake clean. Get that all perfect. Now, for the dust seal, I'm gonna get a little bit of fork oil on this outer lip where it actually seals into the fork. Push that in. There we go. One thing, I gotta take the dust seal back off. One thing you never want to forget is your snap ring, because that's what holds your seal inside the fork. So we'll get that started and then carefully push it down, making sure not to make any contact with that inner fork tube. It sounds like it's seated. It looks like it's seated all the way in. Okay, now we'll push our dust seal on. We'll slide our inner cartridge back in. We'll slide our rod back in. I'm gonna rotate it until it drops in, because this is keyed, so won't go in if it's not right. There we go. Let's start over here as I reinstall the bottom clicker. Now, start tightening that up. So I don't know if I mentioned, but if you don't have the proper metric for this, which I believe it was a 21 millimeter, 13/16 is the same size. That's all the way down. Now I'll tighten this lock nut, which the lock nut is a 17 millimeter. Get that nice and tight. And we'll put the cartridge back in. And something I learned from a good friend of mine, Jacob Bray, is always, and I mean always, refer to your manual for the right torque spec and never over tighten. So you want to give it a good click. Now we can pull this off. Fill it full of oil. I've got the manufacturer recommendation for how much Kawasaki puts in out of the showroom floor. So I'm matching that, except for I am using 10W instead of 5. And we're just gonna pour it right on the cartridge and let the cartridge guide it down there. If you want to know how to do the oil change on the cartridge, you can find that on Rocky Mountain ATV. That's how I learned how to do it. Only thing is, they want you to have 2 of these wrenches because one of these slotted pieces fits that. I just use a 19mm open end wrench on that because why buy 2 fork wrenches just for that? Also be careful when you're tightening your caps back on because these wrenches are just ever so slightly large. So you do have the slightest amount of play. Alright, that's all done. I'm going to wipe off the excess oil. Clean off the base of my inner fork tube there. And I'm gonna reset my clickers before I do anything. So I've already done this enough times, I got it memorized. Alright, see how we did. Perfect. I don't think it's gonna leak again. Amazing how much of a difference it makes when you have your seals in the right way. Oh yeah. Awesome. We're good to go now. I'm gonna get this back on the bike and we're going riding tomorrow. I took it for a ride up the hill and bounced on those forks as much as I could. There's no sign of any oil coming out now. I did change the oil on the spring side, but I don't have the spring compressor necessary to do the seals on that side, so I'm going to save the extra seals until that blows out before I go spend money on an expensive compressor tool. So we're back in action.